In April of 2012, a mother and her 3 daughters were reported missing. Investigators quickly narrowed their focus to one man, Adam Mays. After discovering the bodies of Jo Ann Bain and her eldest daughter, law enforcement launched an intense manhunt to find Mays and the 2 missing children. My guests today help bring this tragic crime to a shocking conclusion. I'm Chris Godsick, and this is Chasing Evil. All right, welcome everyone to New Albany, Mississippi. Let me just introduce everybody. First of all, our host for today and the Sheriff of Union County, Mississippi for the last 14 years, Jimmy Edwards. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Gail Manning. After 27 years, he retired as a senior inspector with the Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force of the Marshals Service. Welcome, Gail.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Baron Baker, Chief Deputy of the Union County Sheriff's Office, and at the time was also the Deputy County Coroner, which will become very important to this story. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And Lieutenant Mike Voles, depends if I want to be local, the way I say it.
Voles.
He is with the Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Special Response Team.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. And finally, a favorite of Chasing Evil, Shane Brown, who has been a guest before on a wonderful podcast, a recently retired team leader with the Western District of Tennessee of the U.S. Marshals Service. And you told me you had done 23 years with the Marshals, 20 years in the Marine Corps. As a law enforcement officer, you were involved with 9 shootings, and this was one of the most disturbing and emotional cases of your career.
Yes, that's correct.
So let's just jump into this. We start on April 27th, 2012. And at 1:15 in the morning, Gary Bain went to bed. He had been packing a U-Haul, which he was going to take to Arizona because they were moving in about a month. He was going to drive across to Arizona with Adam Mays. And Adam Mays is the brother of Gary's ex-wife. So somebody that the family knew really well and had known for quite a long time. So he was a trusted guy to be in their house. So he went to bed about 1:15. Gary's wife, Jo Ann Bain, was asleep. The kids were asleep in their beds. And approximately at 2:10 a.m., Traka Bain, who is Gary's adult daughter, sees Gary and Joanne's bedroom door open, and the family's Great Dane is wandering through the house, and she thought everybody was up and packing and getting ready to drive that U-Haul. Adam Mays stated when he was interviewed at some time later that he left at around 3:30, 4 a.m. and didn't see anything unusual. Traka gets back up at 5 a.m. and gets ready for work. And she didn't see the kids, which was unusual for her because they were usually getting ready for school at this time. So at 6:15, she leaves for work and notices that the family's gold Dodge Durango isn't in the driveway. Well, later on, at about 10:30 a.m., Joanne is gone, and she misses her hair appointment in Henderson, Tennessee. So Gary calls Joanne's cell phone, and he gets no answer. And then at 3 o'clock, he calls Joanne's mother, Faye, to see if she's talked with Joanne. And she hadn't. And then the school bus comes, and Gary finds out that the girls didn't get off the school bus. So it's clearly something is wrong. So Gary calls Adam Mays about Joanne. And Adam said that when he left, the front door to the house was locked and the Durango was outside, so there was nothing unusual. Well, at about 8 p.m., Gary is very worried and calls Hardeman County, Tennessee Sheriff Department to report that Joanne and the girls are missing. And Baron, later that night, you had an encounter with Adam Mays.
Yes, sir. Myself, along with a couple other deputies and the Mississippi Highway Patrol, had a safety checkpoint set up in the Alpine community at Highway 9 North and County Road 171, probably 9 or 10 o'clock that evening. At that time, we didn't have any knowledge or information of really anything that had gone on. This was just a
This is a random checkpoint.
random checkpoint.
And
that
this
evening.
is in Mississippi.
Right.
So how far is this from Hardeman County, from the Bain residence?
Where we were at in the Alpine community, I'm going to say hour and a half.
Okay. So he had driven, but he had gone back home.
Right.
Okay. And that takes us to April 28th, a Saturday, and things are starting to ramp up what is now a missing persons case. So that brings us to Sunday, April 29th. Union County detectives decide to formally interview Adam Mays in Guntown, Mississippi.
I did.
And he denied any knowledge of where Jo Ann and the children might be.
Right. I recall him walking from around the side of the house, walked up to me, approached me at the car. He was cordial. Nothing really at the time seemed out of the ordinary. Mm-hmm. He wrote the statement on the hood of my car.
There's no evidence pointing anywhere, and things continue to ramp up. And I guess the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, or TBI, was called in. Shane, how did you come into this on Sunday, April 30th?
So on the 30th, my team was down in Hardeman County chasing a guy from Maine on a meth warrant. And I called for help from Hardeman County. They came out, and Sheriff Doolin came out with them. And he and I got to talking, and he was telling me about this lady and her children that had gone missing. And, asked if we would be available maybe to come out and do a grid search with them and walk some trees and stuff. And I said, well, we're really going to need some charges or a warrant before we can get involved in it. And he said, well, I'm not sure if I've got enough just yet to charge him with. He told me that Union County had already been involved and was already doing some things, and he had reached out to the TBI and that they were starting to assist in it.
They were suspecting that Adam Mays may be involved more than he says he's involved.
Yeah, well, initially there was some talk maybe among maybe Adam's sisters or some family members that they were all going to move back to Arizona, and that Jo Ann was going to leave her husband for Adam. And I think at first there was maybe some thoughts that maybe that's what happened.
Right.
They just kind of run off together.
And then on later Monday, TBI, again, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, actually goes to Guntown, Mississippi from Tennessee to re-interview Adam Mays. And his statement is pretty short and not very detailed. So they tell him they want him to come to Tennessee to do a polygraph. And he agrees. He'll do that. But he wasn't sure he'd have gas money to get back to Tennessee. At 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, May 1st, Adam Mays calls the TBI and tells them, in fact, he doesn't have the money to come back to Tennessee for a polygraph. And that is the last contact that anyone has with Adam Mays. He disappears, goes off the grid.
TBI had talked to his mother that day also, and she backed up Adam's statement that he had gone to a pawn shop to try to pawn something to get enough gas money to come to Tennessee.
Right.
Once they talked to Mary Mays several hours later, and she admitted that she had lied about that. And so I think that triggered the Hardeman County filing a warrant for him for filing a false report for basically lying to the police.
Okay.
Because at that point, they didn't have anything concrete to charge him with the abductions or the murders. But that would at least, and that's something that Sheriff Doolin and I discussed about him needing to charge him with something so that we could get involved. And so he did that to that allowed us to be pulled into it from Western Tennessee.
Right. So a warrant for Mays for filing a false report is issued, And that officially opens a fugitive case.
Yes.
And Adam Mays is now a person of interest, and you have a warrant for him to arrest him.
Yes.
Okay.
That allowed us to get him entered into our system and to start doing database checks and background checks and all these types of things. So during the initial couple of days here, in addition to bank records, there were some phone records that were obtained in regards to Adam Mays and Mary and Teresa, and also the Bains as well. And it was determined that there was no way to contact anyone. None of those phones were operational anymore.
The girls' phones, Joanne's phone, everybody, all the phones were dead.
Yeah. Well, if you back up to the 27th,
Right.
it turned out later, within a few days, that they figured out that Joanne's phone and the two girls' phones were still in their house in Hardeman County.
Oh.
So Gary had talked about calling Joanne after she didn't show up for
her hair appointment.
And all this. Well, those phones were all active at that time in that house.
Okay.
So
nothing was taken.
nothing was taken. On May the 2nd, we talked with a sister in Fayette County and another sister in Texas of Adam Mays. And they had always wondered if Adam had been sexually abusing these girls because the Bains would allow him to take the three girls down to Alpine with him on weekends sometimes and spend the weekend with him. He lived with his mother and his wife, and I think his dad lived there as well.
Right. And the Bains would let him take the girls to his place about an hour and a half away.
Yeah. And that appeared to be something that was not uncommon.
Right.
The people in the community, when we got out and started talking to people, commented that they had often seen those girls there at the house.
I mean, they were his nieces.
Right.
Right.
But like I said, the sisters of Mays's, had their suspicions that there might have been some sexual abuse going on. And as it turned out later on, while conducting these interviews, some of the neighbors had said, yeah, Adam told us that these girls had been being mistreated in Tennessee, and so it was like good for them to come down here to be away from all that.
Right.
So from the information we had gathered, Adam had been planning this for a very long time. And the triggering event, I think, was the Bains finally deciding that they're going to move back to Arizona.
Right.
Because Adam was already in North Mississippi, established, family, everything. And taking those girls away was like something that really upset him, to think that those girls wouldn't be able to, he couldn't be with those girls anymore. So he had already, we think, been planning to take them at some point, but the fact that they were moving back just kind of sped up the timeline a little bit.
Right.
He had already, for example, gathered together like supplies, backpacks, extra food, non-perishable food, extra cell phones. So for when the time came, he could take the girls and do whatever, go wherever.
The other thing that happened on May 2nd was that the other sister in Texas alleged that Mary Mays, the wife, was aware that Adam Mays had a child porn issue.
Yes, that's some information we heard also.
And you hadn't found any evidence on May 2nd, Wednesday, May 2nd, but now we go to...
On the 3rd, we had gotten a tip on a possible location for Adam. I was actually on a field trip with my daughters, and my wife came and got the girls, and we ran straight to Mississippi and got down there and basically just sat around for a while, and nothing panned out on the 3rd. And the next day was when Union County conducted a search warrant on a trailer.
On the trailer.
And they'd probably speak better to that.
And what was in the trailer?
I know there were some letters that Adam had written to the girls, and maybe even some type of like diary or something. Lots of evidence that pointed to the fact that him and the girls had been there. Maybe some clothing.
And there were child porn materials as well.
I think there was. I can't remember exactly what there was, but
Right.
But
I mean, that's further evidence of his.
absolutely. How that had started was that morning I received a phone call at the sheriff's office from a lady who said, Jimmy, that's this guy that's on the local Channel 9 news here is wanted. She said, I rented this guy a trailer. And I was like, who are you talking about? And she said, the guy that was on the news. And she said, I actually cut his hair. He had came to me wanting me to cut his hair, and she was going to donate his hair to Locks of Love in Memphis for to make wigs out of for the children at St. Jude.
Right.
So that's when we knew that he had changed his appearance, and maybe was hopefully still at that trailer. So we get together and notify the Marshals Service and get with a judge and get a search warrant and go conduct the search warrant at the mobile home. But we missed him; he's already gone.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing to mention, I think, was that there were sex toys found there as well.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when it turned into we knew then it removed all doubt in anybody's mind, Tennessee or anybody, that he did have them and they were together. And so that's when it went to a full-blown manhunt in search of Adam Mays to try to locate and save these two girls.
So there was a horrible breakthrough on the case.
Right. That search warrant, that initial first search warrant at that trailer, which where the evidence was found, then that led us to ascending on Adam's house in the Alpine community, or him and his mother's house. So we all go there that Friday night. When I say all, I mean it was the U.S. Marshals Service, it was our office, it was FBI. It was a lot of us, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're all there, and we are talking to the mother and to the wife separately. This goes on for quite some time. I think finally Mary, the mother, indicated that, okay, she had saw him. She looked out the window, kitchen window or something out in the backyard, and saw him with a shovel, and that he was digging. And then I think one of the wife, probably, I think she was the one that said, that she thought that he had buried him in the backyard. So that was Friday night. Saturday, the FBI had called in their crime scene technicians to come and
Exhume the body.
exhume the bodies.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So that was on a Saturday.
Right. And who did they find?
They found one of the children that was murdered and her mother. We knew then that he had probably killed them in Tennessee and brought them here and buried them.
Mm-hmm. And what effect did that have on you when you heard that?
Well, I mean, it was devastating. I mean, to learn that those two had been killed, and we still did not know the whereabouts of him or where the other two was at that time, or whether they was alive or where they was at.
I mean, in this part of Mississippi, is this one of the most shocking cases that you've come across?
Absolutely. It rocked our county and our community for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to Saturday, May 5th. The FBI brings in their very, very specialized unit, the evidence gathering team.
Correct. Prior to them coming, we had requested a search warrant for the property and stayed there all night. We had assigned some of our deputies to stay there all night, keep that warrant alive.
So that's the way search warrants work.
Right.
If you leave the property, the warrant expires and you have to get another one. But if you stay on the property continuously, then the warrant is still in effect.
Correct.
Okay. So we're still in May 5th, Saturday. The 2 bodies have been exhumed.
Once they had the bodies out of the ground and they were actually still processing the scene. It was late in the afternoon.
Right.
Mississippi Gulf Coast Task Force was already up here, and my team came down Saturday afternoon. It was already late in the afternoon, and the FBI agent told me, he said, "We're done for today.
Right.
We're gonna start fresh tomorrow. These ladies are going to this hotel, and
Because they're not under arrest.
no, and
Even though they knew where the body was,
right,
they're not under arrest.
no,
They are just guests of the state at this hotel.
yeah."
Okay.
And so they said, pretty much you guys go do whatever you want to do, because we said, hey, well, we just got here. We're fresh. We're ready to go. Let's do something.
Right.
Well, we're done for the day. The FBI says we're done, but you go do what you want to do.
Right. And so you had just learned about the bodies and that the 2 girls were still missing and that Adam was still missing. So this is even more of an exigent circumstance. I mean, you guys aren't going to rest on this.
Yeah, it was more of, to me, it was more of an agency, because you still had these 2 girls that were unaccounted for, and the Marshals Service doesn't stop at 4:30, and Sheriff's Office doesn't either. We all work kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're not quitting at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when somebody decided, hey, let's go interview the
Right.
Mary and Teresa over at the hotel.
Okay.
And we had plenty of people, so
What was your reaction when you heard about the fact that they had been killed? Jo Ann and Adriana, were you surprised?
I was not surprised that someone had been killed as much as I was surprised that everybody hadn't been killed.
Uh-huh.
I figured, why would you kill 2 if you're not not kill 4?
Right.
What's special about the 2?
Right.
And of course that all made sense shortly thereafter.
Right.
That Jo Ann was the mother of the kids.
Right.
And that Adrian was an older child. I
Right.
think Adrian might have been 14
Right.
at the time.
Right.
And that if you believe what Adam's sisters said about, and his mother even talked at some point about, she was aware he was interested in kids, then you think, well, of course, I want these 2 older ones out of the way.
Right.
Because you can manipulate the younger ones much easier.
Right.
And I don't think the younger ones, my speculation is that the younger ones didn't even know that their mother and their sister were dead at that point.
Right. Okay. So you're there, you go to the hotel.
So we went to the hotel, the Marshals Service, Union
Right.
County Sheriff's Office went to the hotel to interview these people. We separated into 3 different teams. I sat with Gail and a couple of other guys to interview Mary, the mother.
The mother, right.
And I think Sheriff Edwards might have been with
I was on a separate team.
Teresa.
Okay.
So
She's about 30 years old, the wife of Adam.
Right.
And then I'm not sure who interviewed the man that was there.
Okay. A friend.
But Gail was a senior deputy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he already had white hair by that time.
Right. And special talents, I'm told, in terms of being able to relate to people. Gail, welcome. Tell us about the way you connected.
Right. Well, it's just like Shane was saying. We divided the people up at the hotel, and Shane, myself, and a couple more deputies interviewed Mary. And you could tell, you can tell on people's faces, that they've got something to say, but they're just not going to say it. So I've learned over my career, you can get more with sugar than you can with salt, more or less. You cannot just be rude to anybody. If you're nice, you can get somewhere with most people. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was doing. I was talking to her, and I could tell, excuse me, that she had something to say. So I just kind of scooted my chair up closer to her, and started talking to her more about it. That, Mary, I know you got something you need to say. You need to get it off your heart. I finally said, Mary, can I pray with you? And she said, of course, So I did. I prayed with her, and I asked the Lord. I said, hey, let Mary get this burden that she's carrying off her heart. I know she.
And you're saying this out loud.
Yes, I'm saying this out loud.
Okay.
That she's, that she's got something she wants to tell us, and it's burdened her terribly. That help her get it off her heart. And I said, amen. And I started asking her more questions. And that's when she really let go, and she was telling us about her. And I forgot if it was Adam or Teresa, whatever. They was going to neighbors' houses trying to find a shovel. And they did. They found a shovel at a neighbor's house, brought it back over. And then also, I think she did also tell me after, this, that she did remember Adam. She looked out the back window around 2 or 3 o'clock one morning, and she saw Adam out there digging a hole, but she didn't think anything about it because she said he does stupid stuff like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought to myself, that's pretty good information there. And well, she just kept on talking, and finally she did say that, I think it was maybe April the 1st or a few days that earlier that she did admit dropping he and the girls off at a church over in the eastern part of the county, which is probably, maybe a couple of miles from where they actually lived.
In Tennessee?
Right. No, in Mississippi.
From where the Mays lives.
Right, where the Mays lived
right.
in Alpine. And like I say, it was about a mile, 2 miles from their trailer house in Mississippi to the church she dropped them off at. But anyway, we got that information, and that was about all she told us. I said, you sure you got everything off your heart? And she said, yes. I said, don't you feel better? She said, I really do. I said, well, thank you very much. And that was the end of the interview. I looked at Shane. I said, hey, we got some good stuff to go on. So we got a plan together, got everybody else back together, and we was going to have a briefing the next morning at the Sheriff's Department.
Is that the first witness that you have shared a prayer with?
No, it's not.
So this is honestly a technique that you have used during your 27-year career.
I have used that technique several times. A lot of times I haven't. A lot of times, if you're just nice to them. First, when you're interviewing somebody, if you got to get a rapport built up with them. You can't go in there, balls to the wall. You've got to get a rapport with them, because if not, they're not going to tell you anything. And that was my technique that I have learned. That you've got to get rapport with them. I mean, I've talked to a grandmother about trying to locate her grandson before that was wanted for murder. Well, we started talking about. I interviewed her at her home, and she was cooking collard greens. I don't know if northern people know what collard greens are, but they're pretty good stuff. But she was cooking that, and that's how I got, I guess, her comfortable with me. We started talking about collard greens, and I wanted to come and eat dinner with her because I really like collard greens and cornbread. And I start that way. I try to find something mutual that we've got to talk about. Maybe I'll look on somebody's wall. There's grandkids, there's kids. Maybe I'm playing ball, football, whatever. I'm going to start there and get them comfortable, and then hopefully move into something else and try to get the answers I'm looking for, and then I'll thank them very much and have a good day.
Right. Well, it worked.
It worked.
So what do you do with that confession?
So with that confession, that's when sometime within the next few minutes, we all all of us came back together and compared notes and found that everybody pretty much admitted their involvement, which was enough to be criminally charged. And I'm not even so sure they couldn't have been charged in Mississippi, but at that point I contacted Sheriff Doolin in Hardeman County, Tennessee, and told him, and he said, I'm going to get the clerk up right now. And this was in the middle of the night, and we're going to type warrants tonight. And I want them back in my jail as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And the next day is when they wound up back in Hardeman County.
Mm-hmm. However, you went to a meeting.
Yeah, so I think the FBI was aware that the women had been arrested, but not that they had been transported into Hardeman County. And I went to the meeting, and the FBI agent in charge was giving out assignments to everyone, and he said, somebody has to go and interview these ladies back at the jail or whatever. Right. And I let that go on for a few minutes before I finally just raised my hand and said, they're not at the jail. They're in Hardeman County at their jail. And
An hour and a half away.
And
Uh-huh.
And that at that point, he proceeds to kind of blow up at me and, didn't mention anything about charging me with anything. And so at that point, I figured out just on my own deduction that they had already UFAP'd that case.
Okay, we're going to have to just break it down for the layman. What does that mean?
That's an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution warrant that you can put it on a John Doe.
Okay.
But if you don't even have a name, you can do a John Doe on. But anyway, they did an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution warrant, which effectively took the case from everybody else that was working it and gave them the sole ownership of that case.
Is it fair to say they stole the case?
Oh, it was dirty and underhanded, but it was pretty typical of that agency, even today.
Okay.
I have seen television cases that are going on, maybe right now in Arizona, that where they have snatched up a case from somebody, and just because they think they're the best ones to do it, and they're pretty good at some of the things they do, but they're.
You were saying to that. You were giving them kudos. Look, they do these things well, but you then said the marshals.
But between the Marshals Service and the Sheriff's Office, the only difference between us is we don't have to stop at a county line. I mean, the Sheriff's Office and the Marshals Service are about as alike as two law enforcement agencies can be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're usually pretty common sense type people that don't get too much into the weeds with a lot of useless details. And we usually are able to talk with people.
Right.
And like Gail said, make a connection with folks.
So they had UFAP the case. They effectively stole the case from you.
Yeah.
And they didn't stop there. They were very unhappy with you.
No. So later that day on Monday, probably afternoon time, I got a call from the Assistant U.S. Attorney, Jim Powell in Western Tennessee, that said that wanted to know what we were doing, that we had upset the FBI to the point that they were up there trying to file a criminal complaint saying that we had interfered with their investigation. And, he named specifically myself and Sheriff Doolin and Sheriff Edwards. And, I just explained to him that when we got there on Saturday and the FBI said, we're going home, you guys do whatever you want. I mean, that's all I needed to hear was do whatever you didn't specific. And I didn't ask them to clarify that.
Right.
I just went and did what we all do.
How uncommon is it for the FBI to try to get a warrant and an arrest of another federal agent?
It's pretty uncommon. Well, no, I'm going to say it's uncommon. It's not pretty uncommon, but it's uncommon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And needless to say, the judge said...
Judge Bryant said no. He said, I know Deputy Brown. Until I have an opportunity to talk with him face to face, I'm not issuing this. Thank goodness.
But they literally wanted you arrested.
Well, all of us, literally wanted us arrested. As I have said about the electronic research, Adam and these girls could be in that vicinity around that church. Before Mary Mays gave up that, which really just kind of bolstered something that we were already feeling good about.
Right. So a confirmation you have.
Yes. So on the 7th, when I find out that they have effectively taken that case away from us, what that means is it doesn't mean we can't do anything else. It just means we have to beg permission first or get assigned to do that. So I mentioned, hey, why don't we go and search that area back there?
Right.
And they said, okay, go ahead. So a number of us moved to that area and began to try to figure out where we want to start out there. When one of the FBI agents comes up and says, or calls me, and he says, hey, forget that. We're going to bring in our SWAT team. So you guys establish a perimeter, and our SWAT team will be there to go conduct the search.
I can imagine that sat well with you.
No, it didn't sit well because, all of us is used to searching the woods. We're all from the country out here, you know. I mean, it's not a big deal to go search some woods. And these two teams had to come from God knows where, but they came on helicopters. And so we sat there, I'm going to say 10 hours until late at night. And the FBI teams get there, the SWAT teams get there. And by this point, Sheriff Doolin has come down from Hardeman County, Tennessee, to kind of witness, because I've already talked to him and I'm telling him that I think somewhere in this vicinity, this is where they're going to be. I felt good about it. And so he comes up with a couple of his guys, and the FBI shows up, and of course they brief. They finally decide, after briefing for about an hour, that they're gonna go ahead and go down this trail and search these woods here. And
there was a cabin in there.
Yes,
there was a cabin in there. One of our deputies who lived in that area was very familiar with it and knew exactly where that cabin was, and he led them in there to it.
Yes. From the time they stepped off until they ran back to their vehicles was probably less than 30 minutes, because about halfway into their walk, it started raining. It came a flood. And these guys just turned around and ran out. And that was the end of the search. And I just thought, you know, what a bunch of idiots. I mean, you had 30 cops here, 30 sheriff's deputies, Marshals Service, that could have searched all this and had it done and over with and in the books 10 hours before they even showed up. And I got a call from the Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force commander, Mike Richards, who's stationed out at Birmingham. And I didn't recognize the number. I didn't even have his number in my phone because I'd never talked to the guy.
Right.
And I answered the phone, and as soon as I said hello, he's screaming at me and cursing at me. I don't know what the F you're doing up there, but you need to get your effing stuff together. And I said, hold on, who is this? And he said, this is Commander Mike Richards with the Gulf Coast. And I said, well, okay. And he says, well, I need to know why you're not taking charge and why you're not doing what, you know, these. And I said, wait a minute, Commander. I said, I'm just a lowly GS-12, a brand new GS-12. And I said, I'm being, you know, the FBI's already taken this case away from us. And, you know, there's a GS-15 and 14s, and there's all these people that are telling me what I can't do and what I can do. And, well, why aren't you getting in front of them people and explaining why we need to do it this way? And I said, hey, maybe the Gulf Coast commander should come up here and talk to these people, because, you know, you got a little more clout than I do. I'm just a worker bee, you know. And he said, well, I'm about to come. How many people do you need? And I said, I don't know, Commander. Bring everybody you can. And he wound up bringing, I don't know, 50 people.
Yeah, he made a call. He got all the task force team from the all over the Mississippi and Alabama, and they showed up.
And when he gets there, I think the next morning, he finds me. He says, I want to know who's in charge of this. And we're at the command post, and I said, that FBI agent right there with the suit on, that's the guy in charge. And he goes straight up to that guy, doesn't introduce himself, and immediately sticks his finger in the guy's face and says, I can only understand why who do you think you are telling my people what to do and how to do their jobs? And this guy is blown away at first because he don't know who Mike Richards is. The guy ain't even introduced himself yet. But it brought more resources from our agency.
Right.
We were integrated with Union County pretty much the whole time. And the FBI seemed to be very focused on the tip line they had put up and less on actually going out on foot, knocking on doors and talking to people. So on the 8th, we were in the Alpine community pretty much going door to door. I remember hearing some of the people saying, well, why are you after him? He saved those girls. Those girls were being mistreated up there in Tennessee, and he brought them down here on the weekends, and they spent time together, and those girls were so happy when they come down here, and this and that.
Somewhere in the mix of all that, he had been ran up the chain to a humongous reward offered and being placed on the top 10 most wanted list of the FBI. That's a pretty prestigious award.
And that means more money and more resources?
Highway Patrol had sent maybe a couple of hundred officers. The parking lot at the command post was full of Mississippi Highway Patrol. And then Fish and Wildlife was there actually over on the morning of the 10th. After numerous orders were completed by Union County Sheriff's Office over the course of multiple days, from probably the end of April to the 10th of May.
Okay.
There was a consensus based on the research that was conducted that there was a better than 90% likelihood that Adam and these girls were in a specific area located somewhere around a church on a dirt road in the Alpine community that would have actually been somewhat directly behind Adam Mays' house. And that person conducting that research specifically asked if anyone would be willing to go and search that area. And someone with the Mississippi Game and Fish or Wildlife Service said, we'll do that.
So you guys volunteered, the SRT team volunteered to go search that area. Because I wouldn't have necessarily thought that Wildlife and Fish and Parks would have an SRT team.
We do overland search and rescue, swiftwater, and we have what we call a TACSAR, tactical search and rescue, which brings the law enforcement side of our team into things. And so, and a lot of times, if it's a manhunt or escaped convicts, this type of stuff, then they'll bring us. If it leaves a blacktop in the woods, a lot of times they'll use us because we've got several of us certified in man tracking or combat tracking and different aspects of hunting people.
And you will work in the rain.
Yes, we do. We work in all.
We've established that some teams don't work in the rain. I just wanted to
land there to sea, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah,
excellent. So you're going to go search this area. Has this area been searched before? Or is this going to be the first time?
Yeah, we assume all of it's been because, like I said, they had been there for days or weeks. So we felt like most areas had been searched or people had been in. So as far as just tracking in there, now we found some items that had actually, I think, wound up coming from other law enforcement agencies or something. People had lost or dropped things. So yes, it had been searched as far as we know.
Okay. So how many of you are going to search it again?
Probably that day would have been 20 I'm guessing here because I don't remember. If we sent a 20-man team like normally with us on that part, and then we integrated the Highway Patrol SOG guys in with some of our guys on those grid searches and tactical searches starting that morning. So we've been there, and we go to knock out this last section that was by the church where there had been some intel or something. Maybe they had been staying or had some food dropped off or at some point during the past few days. So, we've been there all day doing different areas. Like I said, other teams have been there all week. So you're tired, it's hot, and you kind of, you really feel like a rabbit dog. You're needing it cleared because a lot of times we can do that. And if they're in there, it'll at least make them move to where somebody might catch them somewhere else or see them somewhere else. So, you're getting wore down. It was getting late. We even debated on whether you had time to actually get it done that day. I think. So, if I remember.
And did you guys actually think you were going to find them?
No, I mean, I think my biggest surprise was, did you really think they were still alive when he's already killed, or these other two people have been found? So, I mean, you kind of mentally, you're not preparing to find somebody alive in that situation.
Right.
And then you feel like, because, other agencies have been there for days or weeks. So, I mean, sometimes you're like, hell, he's not really in here.
Right.
They're using us to clear this out so we can say he's not here.
Right.
Because we do a good job at that. So some search roam around. If we grid search or tac search that out, they can track us with our command post and see every line we've been through, and we can pretty much say, hey, it's swept that out. I'm not saying he's not there, but I'm pretty damn much telling you he's not there.
Right.
And so we were going into that area. We set some of the guys, some of the MHP SOG guys, and then some of our others had set up perimeter around them. Just on the county roads, along with all the other agencies involved. It was set up perimeter, and then a few of us went up a road that it was a little past the church, I remember, but it wrapped around in behind, and seemed like there was maybe supposed to be a cabin or a shooting house on a food plot. There was a structure back in there somewhere that they had warned us about or told us to be sure to check if we got that far. And we had went down the road, of course, if you're not from here, everything like hills and hollows or valleys or, and the ridge tops. And I just remember there was a few of us, and I talked to one of my guys last night. Of course, I don't remember if there was 6 of us or 8 of us. It was kind of just ranger filing in a line down that road and kind of 2 by 2s. I know it was one of the highway patrol captain with their SOG team, because he was the only one of them that's with us in that team that day that walked in that part, and he and I were walking the last 2, and I remember we had both stopped. There was something down laying on the side of the ridge, maybe like 100 yards off the road, and I remember we both had just kind of focused on that, like, what the hell is that, and it was just, and it wound up, I think, just being some trash or something. But about the time that we just actually focused on that, my lead man started hollering contact right in front of us, and then out of the side you could see that both of them were laying there. Both girls and Adam Mays were laying in the leaves there, face down. They were all laying down, and then.
So how far away were you from them at this point?
Me, probably 40 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. That my lead guys were standing on top of them pretty much. They were to the left of us off the road. And, of course, at that point, everybody starts giving commands for them. He came up on his knees, and his hands were on his leaves. The girls were face down. They never looked up. I never seen them even look up. I discussed this with one of my guys yesterday. The lead man of ours, and he finally came up, and then it was like he came up. Of course, everybody said him show hands, and he comes up, but it was like so quick that the handgun came directly up his right side into his head. But it never was in a fashion toward us, but it was all so quick you didn't really have time. And he was sitting there he held it to his head there for just a few seconds before he finally shot himself. And then at that time we moved in, and some of them tended to him, CPR, first aid, or with him, and then the girl, we got them up and got them walked out to some of our trucks to a safer area and got them some water and then medical care. And then I remember by then it was already getting dark.
Right.
So it was.
What were your observations about the girls in terms of their condition or mental state, or what did you
Condition-wise, they looked, they had bug bites. You could tell they'd been out in the woods evidently for a lot. But the one question I have today is I wondered is, I still don't know if they were all asleep or if they were just hiding. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because they never, I talked to my lead guy, the first one made contact with them yesterday, and I said, do you remember them looking up? Because the girls were face down in the leaves, and I don't think they ever looked up even while we were having a conversation with him. Until we walked up there and kind of made them get up. So I thought, I know they would have been probably awake by then unless they were just giving out. I said, or were you so scared or so well broken and trained that if he told you to lay down there and hide, you laid down there and didn't move? Mm-hmm. But that's just, I don't know. That's a question I've always wondered, because like I said, we were silent coming up the road for the most part. And I know if they've been out there that long, I still don't know. I would like to know.
Was it celebratory when you found them, or was it more melancholy? Was it?
I was more a surprise, I think. The fact that you had the girls alive, I think kind of would make you just kind of turn off of him a minute, it was a bad situation for him. In personal opinion, that's probably the best ending for that situation.
Right.
And I don't mean that being rude or cold. I just mean, for their sake, they don't have to worry about him. And that's done with, and they didn't have to get drugged through anything else in life. But, I think everybody at that time was just kind of totally surprised that the girls were alive. And, everything just turned to focus on them.
And apparently they didn't speak.
No, I don't. Now that you said that, I don't think they did. I mean, they didn't to me. I mean, I stood one of them up. I think the smaller, younger girl, I believe was which one, and walked her a little ways and handed her off to another officer that walked them on out to our trucks that were down inside where nobody could get to, a safe area there. But I don't remember one of them saying anything, unless some of the ones that were sitting there actually checking on them medically or getting them something, they may have said something to them, but I don't remember them. They didn't at that immediate time. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I was down there with that scene for a minute before I went back up there. And when I got back up there, they had the girls sitting on the tailgate of the truck, getting them some water or see what they needed and trying to offer them something. But
mm-hmm.
I think we transported them, best I remember, to Memphis. Maybe with the Department of Child Services for medical evaluation, and I don't think they were. I think they were almost in shock or something. I don't think they spoke or talked much either, Mike.
Yeah,
I think they carried him to Le Bonheur.
I think that's
under
correct.
escort.
What were all of your reactions? I mean, did you expect it to? I mean, you couldn't have expected. This was a kind of a shocking conclusion. I mean, Shane? What were your thoughts when you kind of heard the news?
I wasn't surprised that he was out there,
right?
Because the intel we had been getting,
right,
proved to be very solid,
right?
That he was in that area. I was a little surprised the girls were still alive. I was actually at the command post when they found him, and drove out there. And when I got there, Highway Patrol and Fish and Wildlife had a perimeter on the road there.
Right.
And I remember walking up, and one of the trooper captains asked me what agency I was with, and I said the Marshals Service. He said, "Well, come on in." And I went and just wanted to put eyes on him because that's what we'd been looking for all these days.
Right.
And like he was saying, I didn't hear him say anything. But what I was curious, and still today curious, the same way I was at the conclusion of a lot of fugitive investigations, you catch a guy, and if you give him a bologna sandwich and some Gatorade, he'll tell you what you did wrong when you were looking for him.
Right.
He'll tell you how close you got. And I was curious how close anybody had gotten to him before then.
Right.
Because there's a very good chance somebody had stepped over him out there, because there was so much activity out there. And I guess it was just a matter of time before it got narrowed down.
What about you, Sheriff?
We were over on just a couple of miles away when it came out over the radio. Of course, we all rushed to the scene, and it was like, wow, it ended about as fast as it started, but a sigh of relief that they were alive and okay.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever meet them after?
I never have, no, sir.
No, I've never met them either. I called Sheriff Doolin immediately and just let him know that this thing is over with. And I mean, after that, we just kind of disbanded and went back to doing what we were doing every day anyway.
Right.
And then some months later, Sheriff Doolin calls me on the phone and he says, "They're releasing that body." He said, "Do you believe I can't get a family member to take that body?" And they want to make us take the body. And he said, "I'm going to have to spend $900 or something like that of county funds to cremate this guy."
Right.
Or a pauper's funeral or something.
And I just happened to mention, I said, "Well, John, have you ever thought about maybe the body farm?"
That's where he went. That's exactly where he went.
And that's what ultimately happened.
Yeah, so I transported him there.
He had the best possible outcome at the end, I think. Saved the family a trial and all that they would have had. Those kids would have had to relive that over and over.
Right.
Not to mention.
So, are they still incarcerated? Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know 100%. I think they're out. The mother and because Mary was 65.
Yeah.
And And Sheriff Doolin told
So it's
me
been 14 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their sentence was.
he told me that he had spoken with her back in his cell block during the trial, and she told him that she had gotten the most peace in her life since she'd been locked up. That Adam was such a handful of a child, and there was just always so much going on, negative stuff going on in her house, that she felt really peaceful being back there in that jail.
After lots and lots of tips coming in, it became pretty obvious that he did not have the means probably to get out of here. We didn't have any evidence leading. We get tips, seen him in Walmart in Arkansas, but I mean, he just didn't have the means to get anywhere, really.
To follow up on that and what Shane said, that I was surprised too that the little girls were still alive, that that the pressure that we were all putting on that community and those woods, that he wouldn't maybe kill the two girls to get that baggage out of his way so he maybe could get out of the country or out of the county or out of the state. So it did, I think, turn out the best it could, that him meeting his maker and the two girls not harmed.
And I thought the exact same thing. I was surprised they were still alive, the girls. But I believe there was something in there that I read. Was there not something where he believed Kylia, the youngest girl, was his, or something at one time, and they had DNA testing done?
That he thought the oldest girl was his wife, and
Kylia
was their daughter.
Was their daughter, and there was even DNA test or something. I believe that there was something in there. I believe also, and that him believing that would make sense of why he did leave them. They were still with him. That he didn't kill them too, if he believed that.
Mm-hmm. So the two women were sentenced in conjunction with a plea bargain. Teresa Mays was sentenced to 35 years. That's his wife. And the mother-in-law, Mary Mays, was sentenced to 13 and a half years for their parts in the kidnapping and murders. So it seemed like Teresa is still in, and Mary may be out.
If she's living, God, she'd be close to 80 now.
Thank you very much for coming in and sharing your story. I mean, obviously it was tragic, it was dramatic, and because of your efforts and others, two girls had another chance at life. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And if you have a moment, this is the part I ask you to please go to Apple or Spotify and give us a 5-star rating and write a glowing review. And, of course, tell your friends about us. It's pretty unusual to have a podcast where you're hearing from the people in law enforcement who are at the tip of the spear. We're just trying to grow this thing so we could really use your help. So thanks very much in advance. And finally, Chasing Evil is produced with the cooperation of the U.S. Marshals Service. It contains interviews with current and retired employees, as well as other persons. Opinions, positions, and views expressed by any of them may not reflect the official views, positions, or policies of the United States Marshals Service. Stay safe, everyone.